Hey, this is Joe from SoFly, and in this video, we are going to import WordPress users from a CSV using WP All Import. So to get started, we'll go down here to All Import and select New Import. Now we have three options. We can upload a file, we can download a file, and here we can download it from a URL. So we just put the URL to the file up here, or if it's hosted on an FTP server, we can put the FTP information right in there. Or we can select a previously uploaded file, something that we've already used to import again. In this case, I'm going to upload a file, and I'm going to select this CSV here. You can take a look at it, and it's a pretty standard file. You can see here, it's exactly what you'd expect, right? It has a first name, last name, columns for everything. And it doesn't really matter with WP All Import how it's formatted, as long as it generally makes sense. You can make it work with WP All Import by dragging and dropping, which we'll go over in just a minute. So we can see we have all this information, and I want to get as much of this information into WordPress as possible. So let's go through that. So here's this file. We'll select that one. And now we have two options. We can import new items or existing items. So with existing items, we would import into existing users and update some or all of their data, right? So this is used to update existing products, or in this case, users. So for example, if I ran this import and then later on I wanted to update some of the information, if that CSV had changed, right? Or if I already had the users on the site and I wanted to have this file match into some existing users that weren't created from this file, that's what I would select, right? So really, this is existing items option is really for if the users already exist on the site and I want this import to interact with them. With new items, I can still run this import later, right? I can still later on, I can make a new version of the CSV, and then I can upload it into this in this import after I've already run it, and I can rerun the import, and I can update the users that were already created. But the big fundamental difference is this import, if I select new items, it will never be able to touch users that were not created by this specific import, right? So existing items, this is if you want to import into users that already exist on the site. And you can use this even if you don't have users that already exist on the site, right? Maybe you just want another import in the future to do so. But new items, this is for importing new ones. And if you rerun it, you're only going to be able to interact with these users that we've created. So that's what we're going to select here. We're going to select new items, users, and we'll continue to step 2. Okay, so this is the file that we've just uploaded, right? But you can see it's not really formatted on this screen like a normal CSV would, right? You see the columns are here on the left, and there's only one column over here. So it's kind of like a pivot table almost. So this is all of the columns, and then this is all the data for my first record, right? And this is the second record and the third record. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that WP All Import has automatically detected the proper delimiter. For a CSV, it's usually a comma. In this case, it did it right? This looks correct. So this is good. And then down here, we have some filtering options. Now, with the filters, we can choose to import only a subset of all the users in my file, right? We have 8,345 users, but let's say we just want to import a subset of them. So let's see what we can do here. So we can import everybody where the state equals California, if we want to. And then down here, we just click, so we can see my rule I just created, apply filters to XPath. And there we go. Now we have 876 folks in California, and we can add more rules. So let's say we want to take a look at their, degree, for example. Some of these people this person has an MSc in geology. Let's find somebody, let's import everybody who has a PhD from California. Add that rule. So state equals California, and they have a PhD, right? So state equals California, degree contains PhD. Apply filters to XPath 98. So we can see here, this person, California, PhD. Next one of the 98, California, PhD. And we can combine rules in any combination that we think of. So, for example, we could say, or they have a PhD or they're in California. So this person Here is in California, no PhD. Now we have 1,757 of these things. Okay, so let's clean this up a little bit. You know what? I want to import everybody from California. So we'll update it, apply filters. And this is an XPath statement. If you know XPath, you can just write your own XPath statement. You don't need to understand how any of this works to use WPL import, but to go into a little bit more in depth, what WPL import is doing under the hood is it takes your CSV and it converts it to XML, and then it interacts with each record as a node, and then you can just write in your own XPath statement. So if you have to do something really complicated here for your filters, you can just write your own XPath. It's pretty powerful. Again, you don't need to do this. You don't need to understand what any of those words even mean to use WPL import. But if you need to, you can go to our website and you can check it out. We have a lot of documentation on filtering, writing your own custom XPath queries. Highly recommend that you check it out. Pretty powerful stuff. All right, so let's just leave this filter in here. So we're going to import everybody from California, and we'll continue to step 3. All right, now here on the left, this is where we set up our import, right? And then here on the right, this is our data in our file. So to import the data, we simply drag and drop to tell WPL import, okay, the first name, that's equal to this column over here. Last name goes here, and then we do the login. Now the login is just going to be the person's username, right? So what do we want their username to be? Let's go ahead and let's just make it easy for them. Let's do first name and last name, just like that. Email address over here, we just drag that in. And again, you know, going back to XPath, again, you don't need to understand what any of this means to use WPL import, but if you know XPath, this right here is just an XPath statement inside these curly brackets. So you can change this if you need to, if you want to be anything you need based on your data, right? So you can do some really interesting stuff by modifying this XPath statement inside there. All right, now, next up we have the password. Now, the way the password works with imports is, you know, for example, you know, let's say I didn't, for whatever reason, I just had password here in clear text. I could just drag that over. I could also just put a static dummy password, right? If I do this, every single person's user account, when they get imported, the password is literally just going to be the string password. So I can put static text in there too. If we leave it blank, what's going to happen is WPL import is just going to create the user account and let WordPress give them a standard default password. Me, as the person running the import, I'm not going to be able to see what it is. As the administrator of the site, I can't view that person's password any more than I could view anybody's password on the site. It's encrypted. It's hashed, right? Now, when the person, if let's say you want these users to be able to log in, well, they're going to get a welcome email if you tell WPL import to email all these users as you create the accounts. They'll get that email address, they'll get that email, and in the email, they just have a reset link. They click the link, and then they can just create their new password for the site. And again, it's all super secure, standard WordPress stuff. Now, we have an option here. You know, this is a hashed password from another WordPress site. So you can use WPL export to migrate users. And if you do that, it's going to export the passwords, but it's, you know, it's not going to export them in clear text because there's no way to decode that password, right? We have no idea what the password is. We can't see it. We can only see the encrypted hashed version of that password. So we just take that hash and we can put it in here and we can tell WPL import, this is a hashed password from another WordPress site. Then when the user goes to log in, they can just use their old password, right? Because that password and that hash go together, but you need both of them to log in. So in this case, we're going to leave this unchecked. We're going to leave this blank. These users are just going to get a default password. And then we'll go over a little bit more about the welcome email on the next page. So that's our user account information set up. Next up, we have other user info. All right, so we have the user role. By default, leave it blank. It's going to be subscriber. I can manually type in if I want these all to be, you know, editor. Any role, I can just type it in if it exists on the site. If I had a column over here with the user role in it, I could drag it in, you know, then that way each of these users would have, you know, could have different roles. Some could be editors, some could be subscribers, whatever. We're just going to leave this blank and let them all be subscribers though. Okay, next we have nickname. So by default, the user's nickname is going to be, it's just going to be their username. But I want their nickname to just be their first name, right? We'll just have their first name be their nickname. The display name also defaults to the username, but let's make it a little bit prettier. Let's make it first name and last name, right? With a nice little space in between. So it's formatted nice and pretty. And then we have the description, right? This is going to be their biographical information that shows up on their user account page. And we have all this information about the people here, so we can actually just make something. So let's do that. Let's make this a little bit bigger, give ourselves some space. And let's drag in everything that we have. So we have the address of the company where they work, city, state, country, postcode. We also have their company. And then we have their job title, right? I'll put that in the front. Let's format this up. So this person is a job title at company. So they're a civil engineer at Photobug. And Photobug's address is this here. So address, and we'll just add commas and spaces in between. So it's formatted nice. And then we also have their education information here, right? They went to Atlantic International University. They graduated in 2007. They have an MSc in biology. So, graduated with an MSc in biology or geology from education. There we go. That is going to be the description, right? So when this all gets imported, this is all going to be nice and clear text. We have a mix of static text and then our little import tags over here, right? Pretty cool. Okay, registered. This is going to be a date in this format. So we'll just drag the registered date over. And then we have the nice name. It's a string. It contains the URL friendly name for the user. Defaults the username. We'll just leave that as the default. Finally, for URL, let's put in their LinkedIn profile URL. Then finally, we have custom fields. So custom fields is basically like custom data associated with the user. We can see the detected fields over here. And you can see we have these over here. We have a company and a job title, but those are from ACF, right? But I want to add a bunch of custom fields for all of these, and they're not showing up. So if not all the fields are detected, manually create a user and fill out each field you want to import to. Then create a new import, and WPL import will display these fields down below. So let's do this. Let's open up advanced custom fields, click add new, add a new field group, and we'll call this user fields. Okay. And I'm going to put these two tabs next to each other so we can see them side by side. So I can see the data I'm creating the fields for. Okay. So first one, let's create one for job title. Just leave that. Okay. Let's add another one for company. Okay. And moving right along, we have an address field. So we'll put company address, add a field, and university where they went to, add a field, and their degree. And one more for the date that they graduated. Perfect. All right, there's the field name, location rules. So we're going to display this with all users where the role is equal to subscriber. Okay, we'll save changes. And now we need to create a user that has data for all these fields so the WPL import can see them. So now we'll go to all users, add new user. They're going to be a subscriber. We'll just call this test. Their email address is going to be test@example.com. And then here's all the fields I just created. So we'll just add data for these so WPL import can see them. We'll add a new user. Okay, let's go back over here to our imports. Down, clear all the fields, see detected fields. And then you can see here, I don't have all those fields in there yet, right? So I have to recreate this import. A little bit annoying, but not too bad. We're just going to go up here and we're going to copy and paste this data over. So I'm going to create a new import. We'll pull this into a tab side by side. All right. So I'm going to upload my file again. There we go. New items, users, continue. Continue to step 3. Now I'll just copy all the data over so I don't have to redrag everything. So first name goes here, last name goes here, login, we'll put that over there. Email, oops, copy email. Password, leave that blank. Other user info. First name for the nickname, display name over here. And the description, oops, copy that. There's my description. Registered, nickname blank, LinkedIn, goes over here. Now we can close this tab, open this all the way back up, and let's detect our custom fields. There we go. So here's all the fields that I created, right? And this is actually the kind of the dummy field created from ACF. So what we'll do now is let's clean this up. So let's remove everything that we're not going to be importing. Okay, there we go. So now let's replace these test values with stuff from my file. So country, we'll drag that over. We'll delete this job title. It's going to be here. Company address over there. University will be this one, education. Their degree and the date that they graduated is here. So there we go. That's my import set up. You can obviously save some time and get these fields, create a user and add these fields in first, but I didn't want to start the video with this. A little bit convoluted to jump around. So there we go. So there's my fields created. And if you want to, you can just click add custom field here and you can just type these in. However, if you do that, if you skip the step where you make it with ACF, they're not going to display on the user page. You're going to need to write some code or have some plugin or something to tell them to display over there. They'll be added to the database. They'll be in the meta table for user meta, but they're not going to display unless we do something with it, right? So ACF, I like ACF. We have a lot of integrations with ACF. It's a very useful plugin. And actually check out our documentation and our YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos and stuff that go pretty in depth into how to use ACF with WPL import. Very useful plugin. And then down here, we have our function editor. So let's say we wanted to pass some of this data through PHP, right? Like let's say we didn't like the way this date was formatted. So I could go up here and I can put brackets around it like this. And I can just type in my function, open it with the parentheses, then close it over there, right? And so the way this works is everything inside here, everything inside those brackets is going to be processed as PHP. Then here, I've declared my function, and I've just called it my function, and then I open it with that parentheses, and everything inside these parentheses is going to be processed in this function, right? This is going to be the variable, the data passed into that function. And then this function can be anything, right? It can be, for example, it can just be like str replace, like a built-in PHP function. It can be a WordPress function, whatever you want. Or the cool thing is it can be a custom function. So this is the function here, and then we would just declare it, down here for function, my function, date, and then open it up, and then, do stuff just like that. And then just like that, we've, pass this data through the function. Now, obviously this function doesn't do anything. Check out our documentation. We have a lot of code snippets to get you started. You can also use something like ChatGPT to just write the code for you if there's something you need to do that's pretty kind of non-standard and there's no function for it here in WPL import. And then you can just write a custom function to process your data any way that you see fit. So very useful feature, very cool. Let me clean this up. And there we go. All right, so that's my import setup. Let's go ahead and continue to step 4. Okay, for the unique identifier, we're going to auto detect it. And this is basically a way for WPL import to determine, if this import runs at a later date, or if we run this import again over and over again, what is unique about these records, right? Is it just the first name and the last name? So, if there's somebody else in this file with their first name of Tally and the last name of Andrioni, then WPL import is going to think we're importing the same user again, just with different information, right? So we want to find something about each record that's unique. Auto detect works pretty well, actually. It works pretty much all the time. In this case, it's decided that first name and last name are unique because in this file, everybody has a unique first name and last name. However, that might not be true in the future, right? So I'm going to say, let's not use first name, last name. Let's just use email address. So their email address is going to be the unique thing about them. So anybody who has the same email in this import, if this gets run at the future date, if they have the same email, they're going to be a duplicate, right? That's how we know that these records are different, right? They have a different email address. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, these settings over here, this is for recurring imports. So if I'm going to run this import at a later date, the same import here, and if the data in the file changes, what do I do? So we have 3 options, right? You can, if a new record is added to the file, a new email address, okay, so we create new users from the record that were added, or we cannot, right? Then what if this email address is present in the file? What do we do with the rest of this data? Do we update it with the change data or nothing, right? Or only update, for example, the email address or the registered date or whatever, right? Let's say, who knows? Whatever you have to do, you can determine exactly which data to update or do nothing, right? Only create new users, don't touch existing ones. And then finally, next question, the last one over here is, what do we do if somebody is removed from the file? Do you want to remove them or not? And if you want to remove them, what do we do? Do we remove them, remove users created or updated by this import and then later removed from the file? Or do we remove all users on the site that are not present in the file? And then what do we do once they're removed? Do we delete them? We delete the removed users? Or do we just set a custom field for the users, right? So what do we want to do? That's the question that we answer over here. And it's in reference to a recurring import. If we run this import later with a different file that has different data. Now, in this case, I'm not running a recurring import. So we're just going to leave all this with the standard settings and it's not going to matter because I'm not going to rerun it. But if you are going to run this on a recurring schedule, for example, like let's say you set it up to run on the schedule every Monday, you're going to import from a URL, right? In step 1, instead of uploading a file, you put a URL to a CSV and then that file potentially gets updated. So we set this import to run on a schedule. So every Monday, all my users get updated based on this information over here. That's how you would set that up. So that's what these settings are for, right? Now for the scheduling options, we have 2 ways to do it. There's manual scheduling that you can do where you set up the schedule to run with cron jobs, or we have a scheduling service. And with a scheduling service, you just pay, you just point and click, set which days you want the import to run on a weekly basis, daily basis, monthly, whatever you need to do. And then it'll run whenever you set it up to run. That service costs $9 a month. Manual scheduling is free. That's included with WPL Import Pro. So you can decide how to do that over there. If you're interested in scheduling, check out our documentation, our YouTube channel. We have tons of videos on that. And finally, the last thing we got to think about is email notifications for imported users. Now you'll remember when we set up our import, we left the password blank. So these users are not going to be able to see their password and I don't know what their password is. So by default, when you create a user in WordPress, they get a welcome email. And in that welcome email, they get a password reset link. They click the link and then they can just reset the password and set it to whatever they want it to be, right? Super secure way to do it. Nice and easy, right? So maybe you don't want those users to actually log in. Maybe you're just importing them into WordPress so you can use the data for whatever you need to do, right? So this is just something you have to think about. If you do want to send the email notifications, you can uncheck this and they'll just get the standard welcome email from WordPress, or you can use like a welcome email plugin editor that'll let you change the welcome email so it's, you know, formatted to tell the people with a little bit more detail about what's going on. If you're setting it up in this manner, totally up to you. You have the freedom to decide if you want those emails sent or not during the import process. If you leave this open every single time one of these users gets imported, WordPress is going to fire off an email, right? So you have the potential to spam a lot of people. In this case, I'm going to leave this checked. So we're not going to email anybody just in case there is actually a michelle.chico@edgeclub.com. Wouldn't want to accidentally email her. So yeah, anyway, our scheduling options down there, which we talked about, and then our advanced settings. Now, you don't really need to worry about these. They're mostly if you're having a problem with your import. The records per iteration, that's you know, if this is a pretty light import, there's not a lot of processing WPL import needs to do. So each iteration, you know, your website, your server has a timeout. Usually it's about 30 seconds. So that records per iteration, we need to be able to process 20 records less than the timeout for the server. In this case, it's not going to be an issue. It's usually only an issue if you're importing something like WooCommerce products, where each product has like 20 images. You know, 20 times 20, that's a lot of images, especially if the server that has the images is slow. So then you might get server terminations. When you're running your imports, you got to reduce it down to something else. In this case, we can just leave it blank. Same with splitting the file. If this is a massive file, maybe it's timing out when WPL import's chunking it, so you don't want it to split it. You know, disabling the do action. So every time that one of these users gets imported, WP insert post gets fired, and then WordPress will let other plugins do stuff, hook into that. Maybe that's slowing things down. Maybe you want you don't want those things to fire, so you can disable it just like this. And then when the import runs, it's not going to notify the rest of WordPress that we're adding users. Importing only specified records. Let's say I'm running a test. I just want to do the first 100 records. So this, you know, it's going to import records 1 through 100. And there's a little syntax here, you know, so you can determine exactly which records from this to be imported. And then Stream Reader versus XML Reader. We have two different ways to process the import file under the hood. Sometimes servers have a problem with one or the other, so you can switch between the two of them with that. And then here's the friendly name. So I'll just call this user import, and that's what it'll show up as, the label that shows up on Manage Imports. All right, so that's my import set up. We'll go ahead and continue. Import summary, everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and then confirm and run the import. Now this will take a little bit. We'll let it run and we'll come back when it's finished. All right, everything is complete. Let's go ahead, check out our users. Everybody came in. Let's edit one of these and take a look. And there we go. There's the user fields that we all set up in ACF. Everything imported there, okay. We have our subscriber. Their user role is subscriber, first name, last name, their nickname, their display name, email address, the website, and then here is their address, right? Their biographical information. They're a software consultant at EAO, located at Zero Warrior Center, Sacramento, California. They graduated with a BSc in sports science from Belmont University. Pretty nice. So that is all it takes to import WordPress users from CSV using WPL import. Check out our website, WPLimport.com. We have a lot of documentation on importing anything, not just WordPress users, anything like WooCommerce customers, WooCommerce products, WooCommerce orders. And we also have WPL export for exporting everything like WordPress users, WooCommerce customers, etc. And if you have to move WordPress users from one WordPress site to another, WPL export and WPL import work together very nicely to make that a very simple process. And we have videos on that on our YouTube channel and documentation on our website. All right, so thanks again for watching, and we will see you soon.